The conversation with Alan McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along. Uh, as you can see, I'm operating from my backyard, my deck at the back of my house in beautiful North Minneapolis. It's cool because cool because it's so hot. It's hot today. I'm under a umbrella and I've got some lights to keep the shade back a little bit. But it feels good and it's fun to operate from home, and I'm pleased to be connecting with you. Well, as always, I want to invite you to enjoy this program wherever and however you're connecting. We stream this program live across several platforms. That includes the YouTube channel of Insight News and the YouTube channel of Black Press USA. We're streaming live on Twitter and on Facebook, on three platforms on Facebook, and also on LinkedIn. What I want you to do is to support this project, this work, by becoming a subscriber. To subscribe, I want you to go over to the YouTube Insight News MN channel and simply subscribe. It's free, and you support this work. We want to grow our subscriber base. Obviously, our goal is eventually to monetize this by having views and subscribers and just connecting with people locally, globally. You can help be a part of that and tell some people about us. Share, like, and let's keep this thing growing. And I want to, as always, remind you that we join our friends over at Minnesota Department of Health, inviting you to be aware of COVID-19 and to observe the protocols, stay safe, stay healthy, and let's keep each other protected by following COVID-19 protocols. With that, as always, I promise you a robust conversation. Today should be no exception. I'm excited to meet a new person. And, listen, what I do is, this is why this is the best job in the world. I get to meet people that I've never met before, have a personal, private conversation. But the beauty of it is I'm sharing it with 1,000 or 2,000 or 10,000 more people. And so it's an intimate, but what do you say? Intimate, but expanded intimacy. That's how I'm describing it. A way to connect, and I want you to feel like you're leaning into this conversation as well. Well, here's a background story. When we started doing the conversation, we used to be called the Insight KMOJ Public Policy Forum at Lucille's Kitchen. Lucille's Kitchen was a neighborhood. Uh, uh, this is with all due respect, Greasy Spoon, a restaurant celebrated in North Minneapolis, the kind of place that everybody went to every day. If you got there at 11:30, between that time and maybe 2 o'clock, you would have five different meetings. People that you knew would show up, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 5 minutes there. So that kind of community. We started having our staff meetings there, and once a week we'd have a discussion on what the planning would be for our newspaper. We discovered people leaning in. That's where this thought came, leaning in to our conversations. We said, well, look, pull the table up. Let's have a bigger conversation. Over time, it grew to where we took over the whole restaurant, and our meetings became the Insight News KMOJ Public Policy Forum, leaning in. So we're inviting you to lean in now to be part of shaping discussions that have consequence, that have meaning, that reflect our intention, our potential, our desire, our right to be co-authors of futures in which we win. Well, with that, let me invite Janalee Rodriguez into the show. Janalee is a new member of the Children's Theater Company.
Hi. I'm
Hey,
so
Janalee.
sorry.
That's
I'm
right.
so sorry to correct you out. It's Janelli.
Janelli. Please correct me. That's fine. That's how informal we are, and appreciate it. So, Janelli Rodriguez is a new member of the CTC Acting Company, beginning with the 2023 and 2024 season. She's enjoyed roles in Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Annie, Cinderella, Spam Town, and Diary of a Wimpy Kid at the musical at Children's Theater Company. He's performed in productions with other organizations in Twin Cities, including Hello Dolly at Theater La Di Da, and Iphigenia at Aulus, 10,000 Things. Other credits include Man of La Mancha at a solo repertory theater, Nick's Flamingo Grill, and Ghost of Lotte Bravo at Alliance Theater, and Thumbelita and Schoolhouse Rock live at Birmingham Children's Theater. Uh, Janelle, correct me if I'm wrong.
Janelle.
Janelle,
Like
holds
Janelle with like an extra E sound
Janelle,
at the end.
Janelle,
Janelle. Yeah.
holds a
Yeah.
BFA from Reno University, and I could be saying that wrong as well. So
A little
listen,
bit, but that's okay.
it's so great to have you here, and I want to talk about your work with CTC, your role as a member of the company, and your history, and let's talk about art in general, about acting
Yeah.
in general, about theater in general. And again, so good to see you, and welcome. So talk about your present announcement that you're joining the company for the 23-24 season. What does that mean?
That means I will be in the season. I will officially be in 3 shows this season out of the 6 shows. What I will be doing will be determined later, but we'll be remounting Grinch. I'm so excited. It was such a fun show. Then I will be doing Alice in Wonderland, and I will finish off the season with Frog and Toad. And I'm so excited that CTC is bringing those shows back, especially Frog and Toad. I have always heard such good things about it from the last time they did it, so I'm really excited to do this little revamp.
So where are you from? What's your story, personal?
I am where I'm from right now. This is the backdrop of my parents' current home here in Miami, Florida. That's where I was born and raised. I graduated here, and then select few from my class went over to Palatka, Florida, and we got our associates at Florida School of the Arts. After I got my associates, I decided I wanted to get my bachelor's, and so I moved up to Gainesville, Georgia, and that's where I got my bachelor's over at Brenau University. And then from there, I started working around the city. That's how I got involved with the Alliance Theater. And while I was at the Alliance Theater, I had heard about this audition for Children's Theater Company, and I was very intrigued, and that's where I got to meet Peter Brocious, and it was a really great audition, and I got the offer. And I actually had a couple of friends who were working from my alma mater at Florida School of the Arts in Minneapolis. Jordan Leggett, who's a brilliant working actor. You can catch him in Godspell over at Artistry Theater. And Dwight Leslie, who was the PA 2 years prior to my tenure. And I asked him about the program, and he had like nothing but good things to say. And I took a leap of faith, and I moved out of Atlanta, and I've been in Minneapolis ever since.
That's a wonderful story. Always take a second to reflect on how important an organization CTC is. This theater is world renowned. It's probably one of the largest, most robust arts programs for intergenerational experiences in the country, maybe in the world. And so I want to sort of second what you're saying in praising the institution, and let you know that everybody here feels the same way about it. It's a wonderful, wonderful asset for our community. So glad that you're a part of it. I think your presence simply enhances and grows the rich wealth that this organization represents. Explain to me your pronouns.
Oh, absolutely.
She, they, and he is what I'm seeing.
I was born as she, her, hers, so that's usually my predominant, and I am fully aware that that's how I present to most of the world, so that's the one I'm usually most comfortable with, but I identify as gender fluid, and so I like to throw in those other ones there because my gender isn't static, so I don't feel that my pronouns should be either.
Okay, talk about that. I'm curious, and I'm loving that you're free to talk about it, and that you allow me to talk about it, and that you state it in a way. And I think the mission for me is to educate, so that Al McFarlane is smarter, knows more, and understands more, and is a better human being for having the knowledge, and certainly your courage and your strength and your conviction and confidence in who you are is what we should all expect of each other, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Oh, I think that totally. I mean, we can't learn unless we have conversations, you know?
Okay, okay. So let's go to the question of art and culture. And I'll be jumping around in the conversation, and you're welcome to move the conversation wherever you want to as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So I ask people all the time about, uh, what brought you into the theater? When did the flash bulb go off in your head to say, you know what, this is who I am, what I'm going to be doing? Or did it happen like that for you? Uh,
You know, theater was more of like an afterthought to what I could do to be able to sing. I think I always knew I was going to sing. I've been singing since I was a little babe. I think one of my first memories is just like singing along to Barney. And I remember when I was 4, my mom took me to the movies, and I guess they were replaying The Little Mermaid over in theaters. It must have been like a 5-year or 10-year anniversary kind of thing. And I was obsessed with the movie. I knew it, all the songs, I knew all the lines front and back. And I remember just getting in my bathtub and recreating all the scenes. So I always knew I was going to sing, and I needed a way to like let that out. Um, and I think it was around high school. I was like, well, what if I try theater? It seems like being in a musical would be a great opportunity for me to let that skill shine through. And it didn't take long. I fell in love almost instantly with musicals and theater, and I was like, I think this is something I want to do. I think this is totally plausible and feasible, and let's give it a shot. And I had such a great community here, and I that was pretty much it.
so you used the word shine through. I'm interested in that. What did you mean? You said you wanted a place so that skill could shine through. What do you mean?
Oh, I just wanted to bring it out,
Mhm.
and let people hear it. I'm pretty talented if I do say so myself,
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it.
and what better place to be bold and big than in a stage that lets you be that, you know?
I love it. Well, I'm going to put you to the test. Let me hear you sing something.
Ooh, I don't know. What do you like to hear, Al?
Well, what do you sing at home by yourself when you're thinking? What do you think? What do you sing when you? I don't
Oh,
know.
yesterday I had an inkling to sing some Ella Fitzgerald. She's just such a classic, and she's
Oh,
so sweet. And
oh, oh.
yeah.
Let's hear. Let's hear some Ella.
Um, there's a somebody I'm longing to see. I hope that he turns out to be someone who watch over me. Just a little something.
I love it. I love it, Mia. I was catching. I caught Ella absolutely, but somewhere in there I also caught a little of uh, uh, not Sarah. Let's see, Billy.
Oh yeah, she's great
I caught a
too.
little Billie Holiday, and
Oh
a couple of those notes. That's beautiful. And here's where I'm going with the question. I love talking to performers and entertainers, and I'm always interested in knowing what they experience when they're doing what they do. And that's where the question of asking you to follow up on shining through. And the premise of my
yeah,
question is that uh, the artists I talk to, in a sense, demonstrate, reflect, talk about this transformative experience that they are part of, that they are both delivering something, but the something, well, but they're experiencing it as it's happening. So, I mean, they originated on the one hand because it's their voice, their
yeah,
acting, their presence, but at the same time, something bigger and eternal is happening that they are
hmm,
aware of. Is that a good
yeah,
question for you? Is that a good observation? Is it a good
yeah.
question? Yeah.
Sometimes it's not always the case, especially when there's things that don't click, like maybe a very hefty monologue that you just can't quite remember, or maybe a really big note that always makes you nervous. Sometimes it's really hard to let go. Sometimes you're just so ultra focused on it, um, which is great. We always want to be at least semi-aware of what we're doing so that nothing goes wrong. Everyone feels safe. But in those moments where you've done it enough that you can fully just like let go and immerse is a crazy experience. It's almost like an out of body experience,
Mm-hmm.
because you just let go of that sense of self and you just become and it doesn't always last forever, sometimes it's just like a brief flash in the pan,
Right.
but when it's there, it's so incredible. You can see somebody's whole life in like an instant. It's crazy.
I love that. I love that. And you've described what I see. I call myself an expert witness. I'm in the audience, right? And I become a member of the audience with the desire, the hope to experience those precious moments because I know they exist. And I know that the work of the artist is to be the conduit for something that's eternal. And through the artist, uh, the community becomes community. People that don't know each other have a shared experience that bonds them and binds them in ways that make them different from when they walked into the event or the performance. And I think memorable performances do that to audiences. And you're confirming that you, the artist, understand it and know it. That there's both
Yeah.
a desire and an intent, but it also is something that is phenomenal for you as well as it happens. Is that
Oh
correct?
yeah. Yo, that's super correct.
Tell me about your family. Where you're born in Miami, right? Uh,
Yeah.
who is the Rodriguez family? What's your history, your heritage, your lineage?
Well, I'm first generation American, so I am the child of two immigrants. My mom is from Guatemala, and so are my four half sisters, one of whom just became a resident this past October. She moved here in November, so we're really excited to have her. And my dad is from Havana, Cuba, and that's where my grandma is right now. And they both met when I think a few years after they both moved here. I want to say they met around the 80s, late 80s. And yeah, they got married in the 90s, and then they had me, and they've been here ever since.
Pues dígame, ¿has visitado a Cuba? ¿Conoce a Cuba?
Sí, visité a Cuba este octubre para el cumpleaños de mi abuela, y le canté con la banda de mariachi.
Bueno, yo soy medio cubano. Mi padre es de Cuba, nació en Oriente, un pueblo que se llama San Luis, uh,
Ah,
cerca de Santiago de Cuba. No he
ujú.
visitado a Cuba, pero algún día quiero visitarla.
Es bello,
Mm,
poquito pobre,
claro.
dependiendo dónde estás,
Yeah,
pero
por
mucha cultura y mucha belleza.
bloqueade, right? The blockade, right? Por eso, por eso. No,
That's
no,
all I'm gonna say about that.
I know that's right. I know that's right. Well, listen, this is so wonderful. So good to meet you. My youngest brother lives in Miami. He teaches school and teaches Spanish actually
Yay!
in Miami. Y él se casó a una chica cubana como nosotros.
Come
Uh,
on
na-
now.
nació ella en este país, pero sus padres son de La Habana. Y
Mhm.
por eso tenemos una gran familia bilingual, bicultural, afrocubano, y por
Ay,
eso
adoro eso. I
y,
love that.
y lo que me gusta más en el mundo es la música de the Afro-Cuban All-Stars. ¿Lo conocen? Oh, I lost you for a second, I think. La música
Oh,
de...
sorry, my
No problem.
My mom keeps
Oh,
calling me
here we
and she's
go.
not getting the hint.
Sure, 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 sure. Anyway, listen, this has been a wonderful conversation. So, where do people, when do we begin to see you coming up in productions at CTC? What's your upcoming?
You can see me in starting in productions. I believe Grinch will be open in November.
Uh-huh.
And will be open through the holiday season.
Okay.
So you can catch me on Grinch uh during Christmas, during New Year's,
Super.
during Thanksgiving.
Do you sing otherwise? Do you do any band work or performance or concert work as well?
I think that would be my next goal. That and voice acting would are two of my major goals, just to just do some of my own music
Mhm.
and just like be out there would be fantastic. But we'll see what the future holds.
Okay, okay. Well, listen, I have so enjoyed meeting you, and thank you for just sharing your energy, your spirit, and your words, your thoughts. I am looking forward to seeing you at CTC and hearing you. I want to hear more of the voice. I love it that you are so bold, and it's beautiful when the boldness simply represents the truth. You said you're good, and guess what? You're good.
Well,
That's
I
a big,
wouldn't lie to you out.
I know you wouldn't, and you did not, and you
Yo
have
no
not.
soy mentirosa.
Ah, claro, claro. Mucho gusto en conocerle. Favor de decir hello to Peter
Mucho
Grocius.
gusto.
Yeah, y cuando viene al Twin Cities, debemos almorzar.
Por supuesto.
Okay, bueno, bueno. Thank you so much,
Thank you, Al. I
and we'll see you
appreciate
next
you.
time. Take care. Alrighty.
Bye.
Well, bye bye. What a wonderful conversation. So I was saying to my friend, my new friend, that my dad is from Cuba, and that I present myself as Afro-Cuban or half-Cuban. Born in a place called San Luis, which is in the province of Oriente, the city Santiago de Cuba. And I said that I haven't been to Cuba yet, but I intend to. That's one of my bucket list items to spend time on the island. And I have relatives still remaining in Cuba. And they were there as part of the wave of Jamaicans that went to Cuba at the turn of the century they were farmers in Jamaica looking for better opportunity. It turned out not to find it. They stayed a number of years. All of my uncles and aunts, except for the youngest, were born in Cuba. I grew up as Cuban youth, but then the family moved back to Jamaica, and then from Jamaica in time to this country and to England. That's where we are right now. Listen, let's keep going with the program. I'm glad to see my friend David McGee is here. David McGee and I are working together. He is a customer of mine, but also as a friend and as a companion in the community, as a leader in the community, trying to address the question of wealth creation for our people. His organization is called Build Wealth Minnesota. And if you're watching our paper, as you watch our paper, you'll see full page ads every week for the balance of the year, inviting people to join and support and benefit from his idea of getting 9,000 people into equity positions. David, good afternoon. Welcome to the conversation. How are you doing?
Well, good afternoon. How are you, Al?
Good. Good afternoon. Take a minute and give people Build Wealth 101, please.
Well, I mean, that's what we do here. We help families build sustainable social and economic wealth. And um, hopefully that ends up being a legacy building opportunity for them to build generational wealth. A lot of that is done through some really comprehensive education, teaching people about systems, good and bad. A lot of us we work with people from all over the world, but we have been really effectively and aggressively working for people of color and specifically African Americans unapologetically to really try to um, forge and bridge the wealth gap here in the state of Minnesota, which is has some of the worst disparities in the country. And so,
Let's talk about that, because people don't believe that. On the one, they believe it, they don't know it, but they're not as familiar with the language, the data. And everything you're saying is based on data. This is the fact. A lot of people are dismissive about the lack of wealth in our community. On the one hand, blaming it on our unwillingness, our unreadiness, but never on the lack of access to capital and opportunity, and seldom the lack of access to knowledge and training and information that allows a person, a family, to navigate the financial world in order to be intentional in building wealth. And we all know that the main tool for wealth building in this country is real estate, owning a home. And so, talk about what the lay of the land has been in Minnesota. This is really a story that we should all be ashamed of.
I'd say Minnesota has been one of the worst. I mean, if you look at the history of the nation, really, Minnesota's just behind in terms of kind of coming to the surface. The as a nation, I think home ownerships for Black families is like at 42%, but Minnesota is at 25%, and actually that gap has been widening. There have been a lot of opportunities for folks to get involved in wealth creation and home ownership when they started HUD and FHA started creating opportunities for families to get into home ownership. Minnesota has always been on the lower end of the threshold about bringing that information to these communities. As a matter of fact, created different deed restrictions and redlining, where they put a line around communities to kind of keep lenders from lending to Black families in order to expand the opportunity for Black families. That went on for a number of years. And as the country started closing the disparity gap and it got to 42%, Minnesota has been going the other way. As a matter of fact, at one time in the early 70s, home ownership rates for Black families were up 50%. It's actually down 25. It's going the wrong way here in Minnesota, and for a number of different reasons. As you said earlier, you can't blame that on a family's unwillingness to participate in capitalism or in, not participate in the possibility of home ownership when access to capital has been elusive. Underwriting criteria, underwriting is the guidelines under which to provide a person approval for a loan. Those guidelines have stayed the same for nearly 80, 90 years. A lot of Black families weren't even buying houses 80, 90 years ago. And so they haven't changed a lot of the guidelines to fit the culture. If you have families that have been preyed upon and using high cost financial products and services, then you have to take into consideration some of the damage that's done in terms of those families having equity, having any kind of down payment, having picking the right tools. Some of those bad products got people into marginal credit that was caused by some of those earlier products that their families have gotten into. Instead of barter systems, they were always in different kinds of credit systems from different types of creditors that kept them behind or paying very exorbitant prices for money and goods and services, which made it difficult. And then not knowing the systems of underwriting and or the systems of lending, how to navigate that. And if underwriters were discriminatory, you'd just be out. You'd be out. Several major banks
Mm-hmm.
here in the Twin Cities have footprints, Wells Fargo, US Bank, and some others. Wells Fargo has been number one in providing mortgages across the world, the number one residential mortgage provider around the world. However, here in Minnesota, we have some of the worst disparities. And so I'm an underwriter, and my background is in banking. Got 40 years of banking. I spent 37 years as an underwriter and training underwriters. Just really being able to speak intelligently to that
Mm-hmm.
system, that something needs to change. And there are some lenders that are starting to get into special purpose credit opportunities where they're taking a different cultural approach to allowing families to access capital. It's starting to happen now.
Well,
Um,
take a minute and explain how the 9,000 Equities program works? What's the strategy? How do you intend to bring these opportunities to these households in the future going forward?
Well, Al, what we did is we had some data, as you mentioned earlier. We found some really recent data working with Prosperity Now, and we said, well, I've been working on it since 2005, addressing disparities, and we're doing a great job over here at Build Wealth, Minnesota. I think we've gotten over 5,000 Black families in home ownership, but the gap was widening. We're like, how could the gap be widening if we're doing our part? Then that means a few of our partners and our friends and our stakeholders are not.
Mm-hmm.
So we tried, what would it take for us to move the dial by 15% the other way over a 7-year period? Is that possible? So we started looking at opportunities to do that, and not just talk about it, but be about it, and found a way to map that out, how we do it. And so the number came out to be about 20. If we were able to close the disparity gap by 15%, it would take us getting just under 9,000 Black families in home ownership. It'll be about 29,000. If we got 29,000 Black families in home ownership, there wouldn't be a disparity gap.
Okay.
But we were just going to go for the 9. And we found all the right partners to get this started. And we found some folks that have made it their life's work to do this work and to really do it no matter what it is. Even if it was a small loan, all of us had education on our heart about systems. And so we brought a team of partners together, launched in December 2021. And we started down the pathway. And so we've come up with a number of different products. We got a special credit product, special purpose credit. We've got down payment assistance. We got matching savings and education to kind of get people in a position. The 9,000 equities is to get 9,000 families to purchase 9,000 homes, to start 9,000 legacies. So the goal isn't just to get a house. It is to get an opportunity to get these families into a system, as you mentioned earlier, that has historically been the tool to build legacies and generational wealth. And that's the strategy of what we're doing. And we're doing it through a lot of education and really trying to get people prepared to do it. We've been working with multiple generations where we've got the grandmother, the daughter, and the granddaughter. We've helped them all three, and families begin to purchase homes, have sustainable home ownership, and now recognizing the equity and educating them on how to manage, protect, and use that equity to build wealth for their families.
I hear you saying two things. One is that it's never too late if you're working with the grandparents. Never too late to become a homeowner. And I also hear you saying it's never too soon if you're working with the granddaughter.
You said it right. We've been trying to get young people at 24.
Mm-hmm.
Is a major objective. Jeff Robinson's one of our senior program directors, and him and I have made a commitment 7 years ago that we were going to try to get 24 to 30-year-olds into home ownership. If we have a say so, they'll never rent. They'll come out of college and go right into home ownership and never rent a day in their life. So being too young, nope. Our youngest person is 20 years old. We have a 20-year-old homeowner.
Amazing.
Bought 4 years ago. They're sitting at probably about $80,000 worth of equity today. So they had student loans of about $40,000.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a positive net worth. They could pay off their student loans with the equity they built up thus far. Never rented. They came out of college, went right into ownership. And then our oldest family, 73, young lady, she's the first time home buyer in her family, and she's never the first generation in her family to purchase a home. She purchased her home at age 73, ran and got her granddaughter. Got her granddaughter through our program, and her granddaughter is now a homeowner. She went and got her mother. And so it went from grandmother to granddaughter, then to mother. And it's unfortunate that these aren't, I'd love for them to be married couples, and I'd like to see more men involved in this, but it's just so awesome to have 3 generations of families that have never accessed and had this kind of power to build on for the next generation together and be a testimony to our community.
And so, how do you and what do you teach these individuals and these families? What's the curriculum? And you've gotten that down to a science now.
We do.
It is in fact
We
a
do.
curriculum. It's not just talking to somebody, not just coaching, but there's an actual curriculum that you're operating, a playbook.
Yes, we've been doing it for 15 years now. It's called we have the Family Stabilization Plan, and we just now converted it to an online version, and we also put a layer of the Financial Stabilization Plan because we're getting some confusion with some single folks, and I'm not family, and so they wouldn't get engaged because of the name and the title, and so we shifted that around.
Mhm.
But this Family Stabilization Plan is 10 modules of education. And there's a part that we do in-house where there's cohort model where there's some coaching that goes along with it. And then now the self-paced online version is a model that people can go through and actually there's 10 30-minute modules. And the goal is to teach everybody around social wealth, which is something we don't talk about, but that's relationships. That's critical. It's not always what you know, it's who you know, which is sphere of influence and knowing people. And through slavery and all kinds of other bad systems, we've been isolated and spread out, especially with the pandemic. And so we don't look to other people where there's a lot of power and strength and unity and understanding and having great relationships as opposed to being conditioned not to be a family and conditions not to trust my brother or not to engage with other people. We need one another. So social wealth is a major component of our teaching. Then we get into credit. We get into employment and employment readiness and making sure people are earning what they should be earning and what their value based on their education and their experience, what their value is to the marketplace. Now we got these wonderful tools with Google and Siri. You can just ask, if I got this experience, how much should I make? And it'll come back and say, should make $73,000 a year. Well, we found people, we were doing all this great work, and our average age here was 42, and the average income was 39,000. That's what, and the average family size is 4. That's extreme poverty.
Yeah.
We weren't going to try to perpetuate poverty. We wanted to educate people that this was a challenge. And so we started working on income and how to access and how to increase your income, employment readiness. Like I said, we do
David, how do you address that? So you discovered within somebody, a family of 4, an household income of $40,000, $50,000, where it ought to be average, what, 80,000 or so, or 70,000? How do you?
It should be based on what their experience. If they've been working 17 years,
Okay.
imagine they would have gained some skills and some education and some experience that are valuable to the marketplace.
Okay.
So there's an actual tool
So
that
how
we
does
use
a person stay somewhere 17 years and still not make any money? How does it happen?
because the system, the employment system, we teach system. So the employment system is at will. And so an employer is willing to pay you what you're willing to accept.
Yeah.
And everything's negotiable. And if you're able to go through and present to that employer like, hey, wait a minute, I went through the system. It looks like this job.
And I think we lost David for a second. We'll get him back in a minute. In the meantime, we've got a poster for an important event that's coming up. Yasmin, you can pull it up. Yeah, that's it. Make it larger so people can read it. This event is coming up in a couple of days. I'll ask David to talk about it. And it's a expo. It's going to be June 24th, a couple of days from now this weekend. And it's one door to home ownership expo. And the premise and the promise is that the time to buy a home is now. And it warns you that interest rates and prices are both on the rise. So Build Wealth reaffirms its commitment to helping 9,000 Black families with everything they need to own a home. And the everything includes things like financial education, like credit review, like how to pre-qualify for buying a home, how to meet realtors, how to understand and navigate without trepidation the closing pro- process, and finally, how to get the keys to your home. That's a wonderful thing. And again, this is showing a number of the stakeholders that he's been able to bring together. Make it larger again, please, if you would, Yasmin. I want to give credit to the partners in doing this. And the partners include, Bremer Bank, Stair Step Foundation. Um, I think that's United. I need to have it enlarged. But David's back now. David, I was listening and giving credit to the partners in the upcoming event on the 24th. But why don't you give them, mention them so they get credit and people know what role they play in supporting this work in this particular event.
Wow, thank you. I don't know how I got kicked out of there, but anyway, Model Cities from St. Paul. We also have His Works United,
Mm-hmm.
and Babington
Mm-hmm.
and Stair Step Foundation. They're all together with about 110 churches that are involved. The Black Women's Wealth Alliance, uh, Aurora St. Anthony, NDC, NARAB. It's the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, the Black component. National Realty Guild, Bremer Bank, as you mentioned, Banneker Realty with Henry Rucker over there, and Signature Group, Trey Adams and his team, and Diamond Levy with the Diamond Elite Realty Group. Urban Homeworks has came on as a partner. Habitat for Humanity has come on as a partner, and I mentioned Stair Step. The Fraser Group with Shauna Fraser, you've had her on your show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Coming back, Merle's Realty, husband and wife team and family have an awesome realty company that they've been doing. The Minnesota Home Ownership Center has also recently joined, and Build Wealth Minnesota, of course. All have been. These are the initial partners. We plan on bringing on more, but as of right now, these are the 16 partners that have started and launched this, and we've gotten over 500 plus families as homeowners already. I think we're probably up to 700 or 800 already, and maybe 1,000 people in the pipeline that are heading towards that 9,000 that we talked about by 2028.
So this event is happening in your building, right? On
It
Saturday?
is. It is. Yeah. One door. We're calling it one door. So you don't have to go all over town. One door to home ownership. We're going to make sure that, as we did with our Black Men's Legacy, Expo that we were at, that we're going to take away every excuse you have not to get into home ownership. And so we're going to have folks that are there talking about financial education. They're going to review your credit if you need to, pre-qual. You're going to meet with realtors, closers, and you're going to learn everything about this process we're actually going to give you a passport when you come in the door, and you're going to get your passport stamped by every professional you need to get through the entire home buying process. There's no way, you have no excuse not to have a family member actually make it towards home ownership at this event.
Yeah, this is almost like, as you're speaking, David, Harriet Tubman, freeing the slaves, right?
Hey, yeah.
And you almost saying, look, you got to get this. No excuse, freedom, and you got to come on, and
Down payment assistance will be there. Everything you need. Funding. We got two main banks, and we're a bank here at Build Wealth Minnesota that have some really culturally sensitive, as I was talking about earlier, culturally sensitive money. I didn't say free money. I didn't say black money. I said culturally sensitive money that will take into consideration that you've had some cultural differences, that maybe I should look at you different as it relates to you qualifying for a mortgage. So all of these things are going to be available to you. There's no guarantees you're going to get a mortgage that day, but the point is we'll have everything you need to get in position to qualify for a new home.
You recently your organization and your work were beneficiaries of, I think, a $5 million acquisition or allocation from the state legislature. Talk about that if you would. And it sounds like a lot of money, but really it's not. Everything is incremental. And to do what you want done, what is the price tag of
right now? This 9,000 equities is a $2.5 billion with a B, a $2.5 billion initiative. And we are really elated, and we feel blessed that the state of Minnesota, of all, the legislature actually allocated an appropriation of $5 million to go towards our fund, the actual special purpose credit fund. That's almost unheard of in the state of Minnesota, and it's from some serious folks that down at the legislature, Baje, our champion, Senator Bobby Joe Champion, really helped get this. We asked for a little more, but they gave us 5 million. We're going to leverage that already. We've already set it up to leverage that, hopefully 3 times that, to help us. Like I said, it's a $2.5 billion initiative. The loan pool, we're trying to grow that to 100 million. We've got some really good supporters. McKnight Foundation jumped in and immediately helped us out. The city of Minneapolis jumped in. The Polad Family Foundation, Family Housing Fund. So a lot of supporters have really, J.P. Morgan Chase. There's a lot of supporters that you'll meet at this event. You'll know who's been helping us, have stepped up to the plate. The Minneapolis Foundation, so some great stakeholders believe in this thing. So I was a little surprised that the legislature provided this for us. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 years. They did it on the first year. And I know there's a record amount of money that the governor and the legislature put forward $1 billion towards home ownership, and they actually funded this. And so I'm looking forward to working with Commissioner Ho. She's been at our events and supports our event, and I think she supports what we do here. So I'm looking forward to us working together and growing this fund and growing the opportunities for these 9,000 families to get there. I know she is eager to see this disparity gap close. We've been a great steward over our resources. We've been working with Minnesota Housing now since, it's been over 18 years almost that we've been working with Minnesota Housing. We got a great relationship with them. This is a newer commissioner, and she's open to see change, and she seems to be really honest and eager. If you've got a great idea and a concept and you know how you really want to get it done, she's going to work with you.
That's great. I think that we can't say enough about our legislative leadership, starting with Senator Bobby Joe Champion and, of course, Esther Baje here in North Minneapolis, and also our legislator from the northern part of the ward. I'm having a senior moment here. My friend, the Esther's counterpart in District 59 for the Camden neighborhood, but they and other legislators stepped up in a big way. And as you said, a lot of times, Vang, let's see, they and a lot of legislators stepped up in a big way to ensure that significant, investments were being made in our community in ways that, reflected that historically the approach was kind of piecemeal and, token almost, but now they've moved it to another level. Samantha Vang works with Northwest Minneapolis in her district, but there's also Fu Lee. That's who I was trying to think of. So Samantha Vang, Fu Lee, Esther Baje, and of course, great legislators over in St. Paul as well. So kudos.
Yeah, there's been white too. So there's been some folks that have been some white legislators that have stepped up to the plate.
Yeah,
I know we have been struggling for quite some time with some of the Republican senators, and they came on our side this time and really held up the torch and really believed in where we were going, because you couldn't get this just being partisan. This is a bipartisan support that helped us move this and get this across the finish line. Senator Drahan, he's been in charge for the last several years, and he's been on our side. And I know we've had some struggles, but he hung in there and he supports Senator Champion on a lot of things. And I was just so surprised. He just had nothing but great words to say about Bill Wolf, Minnesota.
That's wonderful.
And our organization and the effectiveness of our work. And that just goes to say, a lot. I just said that says a lot. for us.
Let me shift to talk about you personally. I am, David, so impressed with your own story. You always share a little of it, but I got a few extra minutes here, and I want you to go deep into David McGee, and particularly talk about the training in the early phases of your career that brought you to the work that you are leading right now. I mean, as you started as a young banker, what did you envision your work would be, your life work, your aim would be? And how has that morphed over the years as you gained experience, knowledge, and awareness of both the systems, but also the conditions, the environment that make the system work against our people? Give me a sense of how you have evolved in both understanding and ability to act based on the knowledge that you acquire on your path.
Well, I've always wanted to be a banker. As a child, my dad took me to First Bank. It's still downtown with the number one on it, and now U.S. Bank. Took me there, and I was so intrigued. I was probably 5 or 6
So
years old.
you're a native Minnesotan.
Yes, I am.
Mhm.
And man, and this white lady started counting. I called him Mr. McGee and started handing him $10 bills. And I was so intrigued. And we sat at her desk and called him Mr. McGee, and began to teach him, tell him about different opportunities. And we then we went across the street, and there was a national American National Bank
Hmm.
was the first bank downtown St. Paul that had a drive-through teller.
Right. The white building.
Yep,
Yeah.
you know it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
sure. I know the building. Yeah.
we drove to the teller, and a lady, Miss Johnson, Mark Johnson, and his mom went to church with us. She was working back there as a teller, and man, as a little kid, that just said, "I want to be that."
Mm.
Never, man, I used to beat my dad playing Monopoly, and it's never left me. I've always wanted to be a banker. I went to business school, business administration, and I got out and I got a job at Northwestern National Bank.
Where'd you go to
Then,
school? Where'd you go to school?
then went to Norwest, now Wells Fargo, and I started that in '82. So I've been in banking just in September 40 years.
Hmm.
I spent my career in banking. I've audited banks. I've done mortgage-backed securities with Wall Street firms, and I've been involved in training and underwriting, and been in banking everything besides owning one. And I have never been a teller or proof operator, but for the most part, I have had every position that bank has to offer, and I've always desired to be and own my own bank. We are a community development financial institution here at Bill Wealth, so we are a nonprofit bank. We have tried to start a bank, and every time we get there, we've had a foreclosure crisis. Almost got close, and then we had a recession. Got a little closer, almost really pulled it off here in this new building that we've acquired, and then we had a pandemic. So it's been eluding us, but at this stage, we are lenders. We loan money, and we provide residential mortgages. We provide consumer mortgages and consumer loans to help people that are in high cost loans and the lower cost loans. So we're doing everything that a bank does. We're just a nonprofit bank, but it has been my desire, and it's still my desire, to own my own bank someday. And we're close enough now that we've acquired this building. It used to be a challenge that all money ain't good money. And some of the reasons we didn't become a bank is because we were using other people's money. And I'm just glad that God showed us that it wasn't the time and the season for us, because we would have been working for some folks that may have been not the greatest folks to work for. And would it have been my bank, or would it have been theirs?
Hmm.
Now we're in the position, technically, to probably acquire our own bank soon. And it's still a dream of mine to own my own bank here. I don't want to just have a black bank. I want to have a bank
For the
that
community. Yeah.
provides
For the
great.
marketplace. Yeah.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah.
We're a community development. I want the CDFI to be aligned with our bank, because the CDFI allows us to do some of those out of pocket type of things that helps us still help our community.
Hmm.
But a bank is a bank is a bank. A bank sells money,
Yeah.
and a bank manages risk well, and is a good steward over its resources, and becomes the provision for visions. And that's what banks do. And so that's what I desire, and that's what I do every day. And I'm looking forward to seeing that dream come to reality. In the meantime, as a CDFI, I'm loving what I do. I've made it my life work to pour information into people, first and foremost, help with accessing opportunity, second, and just first and foremost, really be a great. I'm a man of God and a pastor, so that's my real job. So it is, and being a husband, man, you and I have had that discussion.
We have.
That's my second job, is being the head of my family and the spiritual leadership of my family, my wife and children. I got 12 grandbabies and setting the stage for their legacy. But now I've taken on all these thousands of other families that aren't my, they're not my children, and my brothers from another mother and my sisters from another mother.
Mm-hmm.
I've taken it upon myself all that experience and knowledge and wisdom I got, that I can pour that back into them and watch them build legacies for their family. And we're doing that.
You mentioned earlier, just the positive energy you got from being with your dad, going to the bank. Take a minute. We got about a minute to talk about your mom's family and your dad's family.
Well, my dad's family actually came up, migrated to Minnesota from Iowa, and they were working in the coal mines of Iowa, and actually McGee came from some indentured slaves, some folks that came here from Ireland and went into the coal mines.
Mm-hmm.
So he migrated here. My mom's family, I'm a fourth generation North Sider. So my mom's grandma lived here on the north side. My mom went to North and went to Lincoln and all those here over north. So my mom's dad actually was one of the first Black people to work at the Ford Motor Company, and actually was one of the few that owned a car. He died, they say, crossing the L trains back then. That just seems strange, but I wondered it was because he wasn't supposed to be owning no car. He was one of the only Black people owning a car in the 50s or 40s and 50s. But anyway, so they migrated, and then they actually met. And my mom.
I'm going to have you come back and tell more of that story. We're out of time. It goes so quickly,
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. But this is simply a continuation, because this conversation, David McGee, is one that is absolutely essential. And you are the voice. You are the person that will lead this movement in our people to wealth building. David McGee, Build Wealth Minnesota. Thank you. And we'll see you next time. All right.
Bye now.